Dobar dan ponovo sa Mikser festivala. Dobrodošli na panel sesiju Nova vrednost dizajna, ili kako smo na engleskom preveli what a waste, kakva šteta, odnosno zapravo kakva vrednost koju svakodnevno odbacujemo i ne upotrebljavamo na pravi način. Danas imamo zapravo jednu eksperimentalnu hibridnu sesiju, razgovor između mog gosta prisutnog ovde u Zornića kući sa nama, Ričard van der Laken. Totally wrong pronunciation, I supposed. You can correct me, please.
I will teach you later how it works.
Okay, thank you. I will switch to English now. And I thank our translators for enabling that our audience can follow in Serbian. Because in a hybrid conversation on the other side of technology, we have Volker Albus saying hi from Germany. Hello, Volker.
Hello to Serbia. Hello.
Hello, Germany. Thank you for joining us. We're really sorry that it's not three of us together and then later having some local rakia. But we will make this happen really, really soon. So Richard is here representing a really great collective from the Netherlands, What Design Can Do. A collective that we really relate to because it really stresses out the social role of design. Volker is here also seeing value in design that not everybody can see, and almost like a forecaster or a visionary in the design world, architect himself, but also a curator and a journalist covering design. Richard is also a designer himself and a creative director. So today we're here to talk about potentials that we're wasting every day. And maybe it's not a very, very fancy word to say, but waste is our concern today. So maybe to start, I would kindly ask Volker to present to us a very great initiative. It's an exhibition touring around Europe, not only Europe, but the world. And it is called Pure Gold, Čisto zlato in Serbian. Showcasing projects that are treating waste in a completely different way. Volker, please, the floor is yours. And can we have the presentation of projects, please?
It should be run by the Serbian partners, the presentation. I hope it works. So I'm talking about an exhibition which started in 2018. And the title is, you mentioned this, it's Pure Gold. And okay, there it is. And I start with it. I have collected some pictures, some images of this exhibition. And I will go through that you have an idea, that the audience can get an idea what's about this exhibition. This is an object by Massimiliano Adami. And here you can see it's consisting of old buckets, of tubs, children's toys, household electric equipments, and he has collected them, cleaned them, and put them together in a very intelligent, creative way to create a shelf. Next slide, please. This is a work by me. It's called We Want Wind, We Want Weather, We Want Water. It's granulated, it's consisting of granulated cork. These are balls, footballs, basketballs, volleyballs. And the idea was to use them at the seaside. Richard may follow this because on the seaside, especially in the Atlantic side, it's always very windy. And if you play with balls, normal balls, you always have problems. But with these heavy cork balls, you don't have any problems. And they work very well. Next slide, please. This is an example by Marjan van Aubel and James Michael Shaw. It's sawdust created. I won't explain, I don't want to explain every work. Next, please. It's Bear and Knell, plastic bottles for ketchup, washing up liquid and household cleaning agents are shredded and melted into a mesh product. And with this, out of this mesh product, the two created this table and stool equipment. The next one, please. This is one of my favorite, and perhaps this one I will show some more of this artist. It's consisting of corrugated card in single, double, or triple layers. And if you go very close to this, you can see the structure of corrugated card. And the designer was Vita Berger-Gensch. She cut these layers, put them together, and is creating this very nice, amphoric looking like vases. Next one. This is a lamp by Paul Coxedge. This is consisting of beakers, small chunky beakers. You know them from coffee machines in every coffee place, in every company. And he collected them and melted them and put them then together. And every beaker gets a special form by this treating, by this heating treatment. And then he put them together to create such a lamp. They are transparent, and it looks really absolutely elegant, and nobody is thinking of anything like waste that we know from thresholds. Next one is again by Piet Hein Eck. Richard may know him. It's a very successful company in the Netherlands. I have to mention this is not an exhibition consisting only of examples coming from Germany. It's an international collection, and we also have examples from Brazil, from Egypt, worldwide, and this exhibition is touring really worldwide. And here, Piet Hein Eck, very nice example as well. And typical for Piet Hein Eck is his very precise work, his very precise craftsmanship, his very exact work. This makes, and this work, this kind of craftsmanship, this kind of approach makes his work his furniture very valuable and also very expensive. Next one, again, the Netherlands. Netherlands is an example from the Netherlands. It's called newspaper wood. It's by Brack Hansen, a framed cabinet. And these parts which are looking like wood, they are paper wood. These Netherlands guys, people of this company, of this guy, he's working together with Mieke Meyer. They have found a way manufacturing out of old paper, of newspaper, something like wood. They cut it, and from this kind of wood, they are able to create new furniture. Next one, please. This is Waltraud Münzhuber. This, if you look close, I think a lot of those examples, you have to look close to identify the material, but most of these materials are reworked in their original consistence. So for this example, for this work here, this is consisting of magnetic tapes, hundreds of meters of magnetic tapes, of videotapes, of cassettes. And she was inspired by the shining of these tapes, and she is weaving them together to create these baskets. And she always gives them names, like, for example, Death in Venice, or My Name is Rabbit, or Forrest Gump. So it's just consisting only of tapes. Next one, please. It's from Britain, Michaela Petros. Builders wood, logs, wooden straps, squared timber, and wooden blocks, and they are fixed together by parts of PET bottles, which are heated, and then they are shrinking. And these shrinking elements, these shrinking connections, these plastic connections, give the stability to these small furniture items. Then another one of the exhibition, it's Dietrich Schneemann. He is collecting, next picture please, next image. It's consisting of flip-flops. Dietrich is collecting them on the beaches of Africa and is cleaning them and putting them together to small furniture. Now, please, next one. I have some examples, because we are talking also of exclusiveness, of luxury. These, please go on. Next one. These are lamps. Next one, please. These are all lamps by Stuart Haygarth, coming from London. We would have liked to get him in the exhibition, but it was not possible because these lamps, they are too expensive. But although they are consisting, next picture please, you can see in detail, they are consisting only of bottles. Here, please stop here. You can see how he is working. He is collecting old bottles, old parts. He's finding trash on the beaches. He is cutting them very precise, cleaning them, and arranging them together to create mostly, for example, lamps. Next, please.
Volker, can I interrupt you for a second here? Because
yes.
it is really interesting. I'm trying to create a little bit time for the dialogue here. We see what you said. It's really interesting that one of the exhibits, and probably there are even more inside that exhibit, that were propelled, being made of waste, but propelled to almost an object of art with such a high value that you could not provide conditions for its exhibiting in the gallery or so. So it will be really interesting now to maybe jump to Richard's project, which is a big global challenge, no waste challenge, to see this similar idea, to show to the world that you can really create use waste, but also maybe create process that can prevent waste, but maybe in another angle. So maybe just to have a dialogue of the project that Richard can show us something.
Okay. I have two videos. One is an introduction more of what design can do as an organization, and what we do. I don't know if that's necessary in this context, or shall we immediately go to the because I also have a sort of a case movie on the no waste challenge itself.
I think we can move to the second one, because we all know the challenge, what it is. I mean, it's calling designers to really answer the topic of 2 billion of tons of waste generated each year on our planet, and we don't see a future. I mean, except that the designers come into place and actually manufacturers. So let's see maybe the second movie, please.
It's, video 2.
Video 2.
I was taught to design trash.
And I've designed trash.
I have been a bad designer.
But haven't we all been bad? Because at the end of the road, everything we design ends up as trash.
The No Waste Challenge is a global design competition by What Design Can Do that calls on the creative community to submit innovative solutions to reduce waste and to rethink our current take-make-waste economy. A cross-media campaign raised awareness and mobilized designers and innovators around the world to submit their ideas. In-depth research on waste and consumerism resulted in a briefing pack. The brief translates intimidating problems into inspiring opportunities for creatives, and we identified local perspectives for 6 focus cities. The campaign kicked off with a global call for submissions. This generated traffic to the No Waste platform, where people could download the briefs or dive deeper into a continuous stream of background articles. A striking, consistent, and instantly recognizable graphic language is at the heart of the communication campaign and is translatable to all of its levels. The second stage of the campaign focused on waste as a design problem. This message was further amplified in an opinion piece by What Design Can Do founder Ričard van der Laken. Next was a series of videos in which designers, design thinkers, and upcoming talent from all corners of the world confessed their wasteful sins. What Design Can Do also provided services and practical support to the worldwide community of creatives. We organized a series of webinars to answer questions and to help participants enter successfully. Generated an overwhelming response, a record-breaking 1,409 entries from 105 different countries. More than 300,000 visits to the platform, over 50 million impressions on social media, with an engagement rate of 6.7% and an 11% increase in followers, and 146 published articles in over 35 countries. The next step is to select the winners, make their ideas come true, and have real impact on the global waste crisis.
We have to remember that waste is an idea. It's something that we invented. And if we invented it, we can uninvent it.
Great. If I'm not wrong, today is the date where you actually are announcing the semi-finalists of this big call. So can we have a sneak peek, kind of a premiere here in the Balkans, to just to know what kind of projects made it?
Yeah, of course.
Just briefly.
Sure. No, we will today. They are on the website. We will announce the 85 nominations. And so what we did is we had a global call for so everybody around the globe can enter. And next to that, we also had 6 tracks on cities. Because we always approach these big issues like the waste crisis from, okay, it's a global issue, but you can only solve it if you look at the local perspective. So for that reason, we focus also on Amsterdam, on Mexico City, on Sao Paulo, on Nairobi in Kenya, Delhi in India, and Tokyo in Japan. So they all also have their own local competition. So that's why the whole bunch together is 85 nominations. But I also have to say that it's from 1,409 entries. So it's still only a tiny bit. And from these 85, there will be 16 winners. And those winners, we will help developing them. So they will get money, 10,000 euros per winning team. And we will help them develop their initiative. So whether you're a startup, or it's still in the idea phase, we will help you in developing a prototype, a business plan, communication skills, you name it. What you need, we will provide that. And to answer your question, when you look at the projects, what I thought was very interesting. First of all, what we just saw from the amazing exhibition shown by Volker. And you also mentioned that, is that when you add imagination, you add value. And that's also what you saw in the presentation done by Volker, shown by Volker, is that it's all about this transformation into something new, and that has new value, and that's what it's at the end all about. What we see in our challenge is that many designers look for new materials. So how can we transform waste into new materials? Also, how can we look closer into a real circular loop? Because you can reuse it, but then at the end of the road it will still be trash. And that's more on a systemic level. So of course, designers are very well able to transform waste into something new that has value, like Volker showed. But the root of the problem is, of course, consumerism. And that's also what we address in the whole campaign. Designers, design as an industry, we are part of the problem, and we can also be part of the solution. And you also see that, I think, very well in many of the entries, that designers and creative entrepreneurs look at the systemic level. So, for example, how can we, maybe a bit strange word, but how can we prevent people from buying more stuff? And that is, for example, also by, for example, in the fast fashion industry, companies like H&M or Sarah, they renew their collection every 6 weeks. Every six weeks, imagine, Maja. So that needs to change. So products and also the clothes that you wear, they need to live longer.
Yes, exactly. What I like this a little bit of the paradoxical title of the exhibition that Volker was involved, this pure gold, for me had the provocation inside, exactly because of the things that you've mentioned. So I understood it as also a reminder of this need and urge of people to acquire things and to be, it's almost like you are addressing people's consciousness by saying this is the pure gold, the new gold that you are maybe challenged to think and look at it from a different perspective. But I have a question for you, Volker. How do you see this line? Do you see it as a solid line between these experimental, almost artistic projects in design that you have such a great eye for, and the real heavy-duty practice, production of design? Do you see that each of them have their role, or maybe you even see that there can be more interaction and more bridges, more research and development between experimental designers and the real manufacturing world?
Yes, I think there should be a connection between those. First of all, if you see those examples I showed, these are more or less one-offs mostly, and the industrial design is something different if you think of office chairs or something like that. But with this exhibition, with these examples, we can show material qualities. To substitute the used material like plastics and so on, all is new done, all is transported, and by these examples, we can show that you can create really something valuable, something beautiful. I think this is very important. Consumers are looking always for beautiful products, and therefrom you can create some really beautiful, some really new, some valuable. And the thing is that this valuability you can get only by your hands, by ideas, by manufacturing, but not, and this is our big problem, I think, by transport, by storage, and things like Richard mentioned, like image creating, like fashion chains like Zara and so on. But with these examples, we can show that we can use existing materials, and if we use them in an intelligent way, our mind, our ideas, our creation, we can save a lot of resources in this world.
Thank you. Richard, in some of the projects that I took a little glimpse on your website, it's not only objects, it's also a lot of processes and concepts and so on. And I assume when you say a startup, it's something that we really would like to see be developed by those specific young designers, or not young in spirit. But how does this affect? Do you see like the impact of this call is actually making on big players, the big companies? And how, what is your reaction that you are getting from the environment? Because IKEA is your partner. I assume you have a lot of collaborators, and you are not a stranger in the world of the, let's say, big companies. So how is your challenge affecting them? Do you see this as like a criticism, or do you think they're open to embrace some of the ideas that are developed there?
Well, when you look at it from a broader perspective, if companies and the big corporates are not in one or the other way trying to embrace this attitude, they will sooner or later run out of business. And so, but I'm serious about that. I really think that if big companies don't have some kind of a vision on sustainability and how they become cleaner and fairer and et cetera, you will sooner or later run out of business. I'm pretty convinced about that. I don't know if it was also here on the news, but yesterday in Shell lost a case done by we call it the Environmental Defense. That's an organization in the Netherlands. that that shall need they lost the case, and so now they have to bring down their CO2 output. Okay. And so that also on that level things are happening. But back to my story is that yes, because we do work with in that sense big organizations or with foundations that are connected with it, because we work with the IKEA Foundation.
Okay.
But again, they are of course connected with IKEA, and IKEA is of course a big design furniture company, as we all know. We also collaborate, for example, in Mexico with Nestlé, and also Nestlé is responsible for lots of waste. And we also, again, we work with municipalities, from the municipality of Amsterdam to the local government of Mexico City or Tokyo. So in that sense, all kinds of organizations are involved. On the other hand, it's also there's still a lot of lobbying and advocacy to be done.
Yeah, it takes really, a lot
to really bring design into the equation.
Yeah, and wisdom, because there's a lot of greenwashing as well in the big world of corporations.
Yeah, absolutely.
And this topic is becoming sort of a communication platform. So you can I see your role also as educator of the audience, but also emancipator of the companies as well through your partnerships. Sure. I think.
No, I do see what design can do. In first instance, our focus is the designer, or I always say it's the designer with an entrepreneurial spirit, or entrepreneurs with a creative spirit. Because I also think it's important that people are able to transform their ideas into action. I mean, there's an abundance of ideas, but there are not so many people who really pick up the glove and start doing it. And that's what we want to support. And that's also what we want to create awareness
and where
around.
Change can come from.
Yes, exactly. Yeah.
But what I liked is your kind of geographical kind of connections, which I also liked in the exhibition Pure Gold.
Yeah.
And I also saw, while watching the projects from the Pure Gold exhibition, it's really, you can feel the differences among the region. So it would be really great, Volker, if you could give us a little guide. Like for me, it was like looking different objects made of waste from different regions. It's almost like a new kind of archaeology, that we can tell a story on some kind of local culture, or even kind of a recent heritage that can be like almost reading your waste. Let me tell you what the society you are by the waste you're creating. What was your impression?
Yes, it's really, there are really differences. When we started collecting these examples from all over the world, we recognized that the waste materials have different meanings in the societies. So for example, if you have initiatives in Cairo, in Egypt, people look at waste as something to substitute, to use old materials to substitute items they can't afford by the price. It's also in Africa like this, in South America. And whereas in Europe, it's more sophisticated. So this is, the designers, we are coming all from rich countries. I'm speaking of the designers coming from Germany, from the Netherlands, and they are looking more sophisticated. They try to develop, to create, to upcycle it. Whereas in Egypt, they really, more or less, they still are recycling. And that was our intention, to show this idea, to transform this idea, that you can create not only substitute materials, but also really new products with only using your talent. And that's a great problem, for example, in Egypt, in Northern Africa. And to show them, okay, please take these materials, take these flip-flops, like Dietrich Schermann did, and you can create something really valuable which is much more than only to substitute a material you can't afford. And this is also the message of this exhibition, and that's why we call it also pure gold.
Thank you, Volker. What were the major challenges when you travel around the region through your project? What would you kind of point out as the predominant challenge?
Yeah, what I think is interesting to see is that, and Volker already mentioned that, in the Netherlands, Piet Hein Eek is one of the exhibitors and world famous designer, one of the big icons of Dutch design. But I also know that many people around the globe, so to say, are not there yet. If you want to buy something new, it also must look new and feel new and being shiny, and that's sort of the old school way of appreciating design, that it is new and that it is shiny. And when you look at the work that Piet Hein Eek does, he uses scrap wood. And in the Netherlands, we appreciate that. And I can imagine in Scandinavia and in many parts of Europe maybe, but for example, you go to the Arab world, yeah, they don't see that. They don't appreciate that. And also I see that in the more upper class, for example, in Mexico or in Brazil, many people like design, but they also like the exclusive and shiny side of design. So I think there's still a lot of work to do, because again, the seductive power of design, it can be so strong, can be so important, but on the other hand, yeah, we as designers or as a design community should also be able to transform that vision of people.
It seems to me that it takes a lot of education
yes.
and multi-levels.
Yeah, absolutely.
Designers, consumers,
yeah.
companies, and luckily we have an educator here. Volker is teaching product design in the university in Karlsruhe. What is your approach as an educator? Like, are you more into experimental? Are you giving any tools? Are you preparing these young people for the real world, the production, or more to be critiques of current practices? What is your, let's say, some kind of a signature in teaching?
Yes, I try to train them. It's like a trainee camp, such a school, and to make the young people who are coming to us. If I ask people, why do you study? Why do you want to study design? They mostly say, I want to create beautiful things. But what is beautiful? So I have to train them to get sensitiveness for what is beautiful, what is world, and especially in the younger generation, and you can see it. It's changing, comparing from the 0 years. People are becoming more sensitive for these questions of the environmental questions, and this helps us very much, and to show them examples like I did in this show here. In this, I try to suggest them projects where they can create. They are on a low economical level. They are not very rich, those young students. And then, okay, do something very simple out of your abilities, and then they get a certain self-consciousness. And I think that makes them sure, and this gives them a certain self-consciousness that this can be really beautiful, and they are able to do it out of their own talents. And this is very important, and that's my intention, my idea of education. I don't tell them, look at Philipp Stark, look at Ron Arad, and do something like this. No, what you need, what you like, what you are able, what is your special talent, and it gives them a certain social background. This is the way I tried my teachment. But it's finished now.
Sorry?
It's mainly finished now. I'm out of the job now. I'm just only conducting diplomas but it's I'm still doing it a little bit.
Yeah. No, but I agree very much with Volker that we also, with What Design Can Do, not only in the Netherlands but in many other countries, meet a lot of like-minded people, especially in a very young generation. So, for example, in Mexico City, we did our first event, our first festival 2 years ago. And that was a big rave, by the way. It was amazing. But and that was also the case because there were so many young people from art schools, universities, that were very much, they were so engaged and so, ready for it. That was really amazing to see. And so I really think it's also a matter of generation. I mean, we grew into it, but the generation that is now emerging grew up with it.
Exactly.
I think that's the difference.
I think your platform, the very title of it, What Design Can Do, is also sharing this message, and all your campaigns are also some sort of, if not education, but I also think it's very educational, but it's also really encouraging this very specific role of design that sometimes in the real production process is somewhat, being like a servant of big production chains, of this huge drive to consume, to replace, to waste, and so on. So now we're giving some other angle on design. It's also almost like calling up designers for some kind of codex to really think.
Now, for us, it's always important to be very optimistic because there's already enough negative vibes in the world.
Yes.
I also think it's important that we, as an organization or or a movement or whatever you want to call it, that we carry out some sense of swagger, as I always call it. It's also important that we just do it. That we try, make mistakes, but at least we do it.
It really bring you to the Balkan situations a little bit, because you both pointed out that geography is influencing the way we do and we make things and the way we use them. And this, speaking of, let's say, less rich countries, there is almost a little complex of a consumer that through being able to buy, to possess, you are sort of living out some kind of a complex of your own. And I'm wondering whether we can sort of, it seems like there's a loop that we all need to make to sort of reach and see ourselves as kind of wealthy, to get our conscience back on the tracks of getting back to some basics, getting rid of these habits of acquiring, kind of stacking goods, collections, and so on, unwanted objects. But can we somehow jump this? Can we introduce this philosophy in countries like Serbia to lose this complex and immediately start appreciating what we have? We are in this barn.
I don't think
it's a barn. No, you think?
No.
It's in human nature.
That's an illusion. Yeah, it's human nature. But no, but that is, by the way, also something that you see in our challenge, and a lot of designers tap into that, because everybody likes, for example, this phenomenon of luxury. The big brands like Prada and you name them, whatever, they all want to offer you this feeling of luxury. We all like that. That's not something you can ignore. So as soon as you have money, you want to buy that. And by the way, it's not only about products; it's also about food. And now I think the World Health Organization calculated that in the coming years, the amount of meat that will be consumed will only become bigger and bigger and bigger. And here in the West, we are now doing all kinds of things with vegetarian food, also growing. But so it's something that people want. But we can think about responsible consumerism, or and that's what we saw in some very interesting entries in the challenge. Also, responsible luxury, so to say. And so you can live a luxurious life with beautiful things in that are, but it's not bad for the planet. So I think that that's more the case. Of course, you want to buy things and you want to enjoy yourself with beauty and luxury. We can, we should do it in a different way. That's the thing.
Yes, exactly. This is why I think this is the also message of the Volker's exhibition, Pure Gold.
Absolutely. You see it there as well.
Yeah, because it's actually saying we get it. You need to have this fascination by objects, but objects can be something different. So how was the exhibition received in many places that has been traveled so far? I also saw you, it's not only exhibition, but it's also initiating dialogues and different programs that happen along the way. So that interaction, how was it?
Yes, unfortunately, actually we have a stop. We started in Hamburg and the audience was very excited about it. And then we went to Southeast Asia, to Vietnam, Bangkok, Manila, and Myanmar, and people were really excited. And because we always try to include local designers and to encourage them to do their stuff. And if they see themselves in this line, in this correspondence to such really beautiful items we are showing, and partly very expensive and very luxury, they are very proud and they are really encouraged out of this. And it's really, I agree absolutely with Richard. We have to create also a new understanding of what is luxury. If how is Prada or Gucci luxury? How do they create it? They do it by image. They do it by PR. They do it by expensive models and so on. But mostly, a lot of these items, if you look very close to them, they are not really good design. They are really awful. Last week they showed the Grand Prix de Monaco, and the first prize was covered in a Louis Vuitton case, and it was so ugly and awful. It was really terrible. But it's expensive, and a lot of people like it. But if we show people, for example, those Stuart Hager's chandeliers, which are 20,000 euros, it's amazing, and it consists of trash. But it's nice done, and people understand. Okay, they see what it is made of, how it is made. It's very precise done, craftsmanship. It's really a factor in this, and I think this will last very long. But I think we can succeed. The younger generation is convinced more and more producing this kind of understanding of luxury.
So basically to use their tools and weapons only for a different cause of projecting another image. But now you mentioned at the beginning systemic approach.
Yeah.
And it's really, I as a consumer, or even someone who's considered myself a little bit activistic in my kind of focus on design, I simply cannot see how it is possible that this entire shift without this bigger change of real production process, big games and big, so I'm even wondering, in your, let's say, work and collaborations, do you see what is the role of the, let's say, government, if not big companies? Can this be done from another angle, through legislations, through different incentives?
Sure.
And how can we?
Because it's of course not, you cannot solve this with design alone. That would be of course a ridiculous statement. Design is a very important part in the whole system. But for example, if we want to focus on this idea of luxury, a sort of new way of new way of approaching luxury, then still these luxury brands need to be forced to use materials and products that are not harmful. And that is something that you can only achieve with legislation, I think. I mean, as long as you can still look for the cheapest way, which is the most harmful way, then companies will do it, because everybody is always looking for the cheapest and the fastest way to do it. So that's where legislation comes in.
But it's also, now we can talk about luxury in other terms, like soon the water can be luxury, or clean air can be luxury.
Yeah.
For many of us, the shelter, the home can be luxury. And the last time you and I were sharing the same physical space together were when you came first to Mikser Festival in 2016. And both our focus was, at that time, totally coincidentally, people on the move, refugees, losing home, sort of losing habitat. Now we're losing habitat, not only us, but other species. So it's, it calls, I think, for a much bigger action.
Yeah.
But another question I wanted to ask you is that what design can do. We discussed this. You were involved in finding solutions. This was another challenge for shelter for people in the need. Now you're treating ideas for waste. So what would be like, what do you think? How do you predict the future? Do you have any kind of vision what will happen in the next, okay, let's not say 50, but at least 20 years. Can you foresee some of the new challenges that what design can do will be dealing with?
If I'm very, because I said that I'm always very optimistic, but of course there will occur all kinds of changes. So I think that, for example, this whole notion of climate adaptation will be something that we will have to look closer into, also as a creative or as a design-driven community. And with adaptation, I mean that we have to deal with the climate that is changing. So, for example, here in my country, in the Netherlands, that means water. We have the Netherlands. Maybe you know is a delta, and so all the rivers from not all the rivers, but rivers from the Alps end in the Netherlands, and there they go into the North Sea. So the Netherlands has to deal with the rising sea level, but also with these rivers that burst out. So we have the water from both sides, the salty water and the sweet water that is attacking the Netherlands. But throughout not only the decades, but the Netherlands has been dealing with this almost for hundreds of years. So in the Netherlands, we sort of know how to deal with it. It's a very engineering thing. So how do we deal with the water instead of fighting against the water? But it also entails a lot of design-driven solutions. So, for example, what you already see in the Netherlands is a small example. That's a new area in the city of Rotterdam. They built on different levels. So when when there's a lot of water, you have lower parts in that area that suddenly become a sort of a beacon. Mm-hmm. So there is also a bridge. But when the water is low, they use it for skateboarding.
Right.
Yeah, so, and of course also many architects in the Netherlands already work with the concept of water. So houses on water, floating houses, houses that can move depending on how high the water is. So that is something that we, I think, I now give you this example in the Netherlands, but also in other countries. I think we all will have to deal with that issue. And I think it also is connected with how we met 5 years ago.
Exactly.
Because climate change and climate adaptation will also mean that there will be a lot of climate refugees.
Exactly.
And that is another thing, and when you talk about climate adaptation, in Europe we will also have to deal with a great influx of people from Africa and the Middle East, not only because there's war, but also because it's not possible to live there anymore, because it's too dry, too hot, etc., etc. So, and then again, there are all kinds of design-driven issues that need to be solved.
Once discussing this with our colleagues from Slovenia who are dealing a lot with the circular economy and circular change, Ladea, the lady who runs this organization, told us like it should be very easy because all the companies, all the governments are led by people, you know, the same people that will not be protected by the same conditions coming to certain part of the world.
That
so
is
how
true.
come it's so difficult to understand for a kind of CEO of a company or a board of directors that something needs to be done differently? So we need to work on this through education.
I think that has two reasons. First of all, it's hard to understand. Climate change is not something that happens overnight, so it's difficult to grasp. And the other one is money.
Yes.
It will cost a lot of money, and the oil industry is still one of the biggest industries in the whole wide world. So how are we going to change that if people still earn billions of dollars with it?
Volker, last time you were here in Belgrade, it was 2013. You were then very present in the festival. You were telling us about the different new movements in design. You were part of the jury deciding on the best projects within our Ghost project platform for young designers. So it's been a while since we met and we saw like your interest. We've been following your work, but what do you think will be your future focus that you can maybe even predict now with the way the planet is evolving?
Yes, I must confess I don't have a very precise prediction, but I'm nevertheless I'm quite hopeful because I see, especially under the young generation, and I think their work is counting more and more. They become more and more sensitive for the challenges Richard has described very precisely. Environmental challenges, material challenges, refugee migration, and so on and so on. And by getting new tools also, for example, I think what is very important, the very intensive, more and more used tool of the internet, that makes me hopeful. And in comparison, for example, to the late 80s, 90s, this was my generation, my starting in design, when we were looking really on individual design, when the society celebrated heroes like Ettore Sozzas, Mendini, Ron Arad, Philipp Stark. They were very important for design. But these guys, these philosophies, they are no longer really, they have no impact anymore. And this really makes me hopeful. And even such a crisis like we have actually, the so-called Corona crisis, it's just a small crisis in comparison to the climate crisis. They give the people a real feeling of the real challenges. But I think we can manage it, but it takes a lot of work, it takes a lot of money, and it takes a lot of fantasy and new and alternative visions. But as I mentioned, I'm hopeful.
Thank you. We will actually take this message of yours to conclude these conversations. Thank you both very, very much. We will meet, I guess, hopefully in person really soon to actually check if these optimistic predictions were right. And you can stay with us after this panel. We're discussing design issues with our local Balkan design scene. Thank you, everyone.